All
You're
right.
set.
All right, I'd like to bring to order the Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 Middleton Board of Selectmen meeting here on internet-based meeting space Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. I guess if there's nothing else to discuss there, I can go to item number 1, which is the warrant number 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On warrant 2024 this week, on payroll, we have $691,439, and on bills payable, we have a large amount this period, $3,971,494. Of that, the usual payroll deductions in the amount of $85,768, with trash removal costs at $16,233, purchase of power by Meld at $716,022, Fuller Meadow Security at $49,494, and then our fourth quarter Masconomet assessment at $2,492,022, and our insurance for the quarter at $319,606. Sarah Wood has reviewed and asks the board's approval.
Do you have any questions at all?
I'll move to accept.
Second. We have a motion to accept. Elms, thank you. And a second from Mr. Cresta.
Second.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the warrant?
We'll have to do a roll call.
Oh, that's right. My bad.
So-
Could I have Selectman Moreski call the roll call, please?
Selectman Casiotis. Yeah, this should have been you, Rick. Sorry. Selectman Casiotis.
Yes.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. I'd like to move on to accept the minutes of the open session from May 5th, 2020. If I could I get the clerk to call the roll?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the open meeting session of minutes of May 5th, 2020.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, could I get the clerk to call the roll, please? Thank you.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Casiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. If I go now to Town Administrator Andrew Sheehan for any updates and reports. Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A number of updates tonight for the board and more particularly for the public. A couple of updates on property taxes and motor vehicle excise taxes. The board will recall that on April 7th, as the extent of the COVID virus was really becoming known, the board adopted a grace period for property taxes and other taxes that extended the real estate property tax deadline to June 1 from the normal May 1, and also instituted a grace period so that as long as the property tax bill is paid by June 30th, there are no late fees or other penalties. At that time, we made an administrative decision to not issue the second commitment for motor vehicle excise. Our biggest excise commitment goes out in February, was already due at the time that that COVID hit. That was due on March 11th. So at that time, we made the decision here not to issue the commitment to bills and the any demands for outstanding bills. We're going ahead and issuing commitments 2 and 3 this week. Commitment 2 is about $226,000. Commitment 3 is $48,500. These are quite small in comparison to motor vehicle excise commitment 1, which is about $1.6 million. So we're going to go ahead and issue those, and also issue demands for commitment 1 and for prior any outstanding prior years. So most people won't be significantly affected by this, as again the first commitment of motor vehicle excise taxes is the largest. And then really on the property tax side, just a reminder to people to that you've got another month and change to get your payments in without incurring any additional penalties. So as long as we receive it by June 30th, people will be good, and there'll be no additional fees or penalties. The board and residents may have seen a notice last week about a municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. That's a project that Kristen Kent in the Conservation Department is spearheading for us. The plan identifies environmental threats and vulnerabilities related to climate change, and the plan has been in the works since I think it started late fall. We had hoped to hold a public forum to present the plan and the plan's findings, but COVID got in the way of all of that. So we're going to do that remotely. The plan is online. You can find it on, there's a link to it on our homepage, and there's a survey that's available until May 25th. So anybody that would like to weigh in and comment on the draft plan can do that. This project was paid for with a state grant, and so it's not costing the town anything other than some in-kind contributions in the form of staff hours, mostly Kristen's hours, and some staff, others of us that have been involved in some of the meetings. Related to this, Kristen and Katrina O'Leary are working on a couple of grant applications. One of them is a feasibility study of a potential river walk along the Ipswich River between Peabody Street and Maple Street. It's an ambitious but exciting plan, and the grant that they're putting in for will study the feasibility of doing such a walkway and develop some concept plans and things like that. So there's no implementation associated with it. Implementation would come only probably many years down the road, but prior to doing any kind of a plan like this or any kind of a project like this, you need a plan for it. So that's what Kristen and Katrina are working on with this implementation project. So this is a busy time of year for Public Works. Public Works is essentially back open, fully operational, with all the laborers and drivers and equipment operators back on the job. We had kept some of them home and had been operating on a sort of split shift with them, but we really needed to get them back in and on the ground with mowing and everything picking up in just the normal springtime activities. Ryer and Devonshire were paved within the last couple of weeks. Old Essex was paved last week, and as I mentioned, turf is kicking into high gear. DPW has also arranged for our contractor to mow 105 South Main Street, the former golf course. The first mowing is expected to happen either later this week or next week. And we're planning on roughly 4 or 5 cuttings during the course of the year, approximately once a month. It'll vary a little bit depending on how quickly things grow out there. But we made a commitment to maintain the property when we acquired it. We received funding a year and a half ago for that purpose. We have funds available now to do about 8 mowings, and so we're trying to do that in such a way that we can do this year and squeeze out most of next year. So weather obviously will have some effect on that. If it's particularly wet, it will grow faster, and we may have to cut more frequently. But you can expect to see some activity out there again later this week or next. As always happens at the beginning of May, we're under a level 3 water ban that went into effect on May 1, and we do that in concert with our with our water partners, the town of Danvers. So nothing new. It's the kind of the nature of the Ipswich River watershed. So I mentioned last meeting that our usual Memorial Day activities are canceled as a result of COVID-19. Gary Bent, our Veteran Services Officer, his son, and a bunch of National Guardsmen from Massachusetts put up about 900 flags today at the cemetery, along the streets, and in other places. So we thank Gary and his crew for their efforts. Gary does a great job for us, and he enlisted some additional support to get this work done today. And then finally, the last item I have has to do with Thunderbridge Beach and a request to add an item to the agenda tonight that was not included in the original agenda. With the governor's reopening plan released yesterday, beaches and public swimming holes are allowed to open up as early as, depends on how you read it, but certainly by next week, they can open up under certain circumstances. Derek Fullerton, our health director, does not support opening Thunderbridge Beach at this point. It may be something that we would want to consider later in the year, but he doesn't have the authority to close the beach. He said that that's the purview of the board, and so he's asked the board to consider taking that up tonight. If the board is interested in doing that, we can take that up at the end of the agenda after all of the other business is taken care of. So, other than that, no other updates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sheehan. I guess we can, I agree that we should take up and finalize our decision on the Thunder Bridge at the end of the listed agenda items tonight. There's no.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now we'll have to ask Assistant Town Manager, Tanya, is there anyone in the room, so to speak, for the public comment period that we're aware of? No. Oop, I lost your volume.
You're actually on mute, Tanya.
I thought I had that special unmute function there. I haven't heard from anyone in the comment section, but that doesn't mean there aren't people online.
Oh, okay.
They should do that. What I might ask, if there's anyone that wants to make a public comment at this point in time, just indicate that by taking yourself off of mute.
Okay, so if anyone is in the Zoom meeting now that's interested in a public comment, take yourself off of mute and identify yourself and your residence. Okay, I will take that delay as no, I believe. And if that's the case, no one else, then we can move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is applications under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 15A, Amendment, alteration of premises for the all alcohol beverages restaurant liquor licenses for Serenity Catering Corp. doing business as Maggie's Farm by attorney Jill Mann, located at A, 119 South Main Street and B, 189 South Main Street. Do we have anyone that wants to speak on that?
Jill Mann is here on behalf of the petitioner.
Okay, good evening, Jill.
Good evening.
All right, if you want to give us a brief description here of what you're looking for here.
Sure. First, I'd like to say that I really applaud Middleton. I feel as though we've really been good about keeping the town open and having public meetings, and I applaud you for coordinating it all and allowing us to continue. Thank you. Now on to this business. So as you all know, the emergency shutdown has resulted in the closure of every restaurant in town. It is anticipated that there will be a phased opening for restaurants. If Maggie's is opened, it would be open, Maggie's at 119, it will be opened basically on a partial basis. They're saying somewhere between 25 and 50% of capacity. As many people know, restaurants can't really function at 25 to 50% capacity. Their margins are very small. As a result, we're seeking to actually be able to expand, if you will, the footprint of the restaurant to include that area that had been previously used by Soul Bean outside. So we can take a peek. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that. So basically what we had submitted is this is the site plan. Soul Bean has always used this area. Oh, I'm doing the pointer with my pointer, Tanya. And it occurs to me I cannot. So it is everybody knows where Soul Bean, it's the portion of the building that actually leads or is most proximate to South Main Street. And then you can see where the deck is. We all know where the Soul Bean area was that had actually been available for outdoor seating. So what we're applying for is the ability to use that. At the present time, it's already fairly well encapsulated and secure. One thing that will need to be done is we will be inserting a gate going across one of the oh, thank you, Tanya. So there you go. So there's the deck area. There's where we're going to install the gate across the if you will, first stairway. So that'll be something that will go across and we will protect it. And then we also are going to install a gate behind the second opening, and at all points in time, there'll be a hostess podium. Maggie's does currently hold a number of outdoor liquor licenses, so it understands what the requirements are. It's restaurants in Hamilton, it's restaurants in Beverly, it's restaurant in Gloucester, and its restaurant in Winchester all have outdoor areas. So they're more than familiar with the need to provide for security with regard to service of alcohol in those outdoor areas. Again, we ask for this relief in order to be able to open Maggie's doors and to do so in a financially reasonable manner.
Jill, how many seats would be on the deck?
Well, that honestly, it depends upon Derek. We don't know yet. So we don't know how many they're going to allow, Mr. Pentakis, which is why I didn't show it. We don't know if it's 6-foot distancing. We don't know if they would allow chairs. We don't know if they're going to allow standing. It's all conjecture. Even if you try to read any of the orders, there's no guidance whatsoever. But because it takes so long to process a change in a liquor license, we had to do it immediately. We couldn't wait for the order to be issued, or we would never be able to serve and it would be pointless. So basically, we will comply with whatever is the requirement, and it'll be less than what you could have put out there at any other point in time. But it won't exceed the capacity of the current restaurant, because that's what we're trying to make up, basically.
Okay. Anyone else? Or
I got a quick question here. So the parking lot over there is, I see it's under construction, you know?
Who is asking the question? I apologize.
yeah. Could you just, once again, sir, and your identify yourself and where you live?
Yep, Dr. Crash and Roll, live in the Brigadoon area.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So there's, I notice a lot of construction going on in the parking lot over there.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering here, so are they just going to be parking on the Meadow Drive street where people live? And I just want to know something about that. Like, maybe we should put residential parking stickers. That might be a big help, because I noticed a lot of families, they're having a tough time getting a parking spot at night when they're coming home.
No, this is actually a great question. So right now, the reason why you're seeing all the disruption is because they were installing a brand new septic system. That work should be done next week, and there is no intention of allowing the public to park all up and down that street. And in fact, it's my understanding that Mr. Kelly had contacted the town, and that the town on a temporary basis would allow all of the employees to basically park down the street at the golf course, and then certain patrons would as well. And then to the extent there's availability in the parking lot, they would park there. So there won't be this huge insurgence. I do understand that during this construction process, sir, that a lot of the parking has been displaced, but that is very temporary. And as I said, should be completed next week.
Okay, so just to be clear, you said the staff will be parking in the old golf course parking lot.
That's what we're going to do, is put the staff there, and to the extent there's been the entitlement for the Maggies to park on the first portion of that street, if there were not sufficient room for the public to park because there was still ongoing construction, you would have some people parked on that street, but it wouldn't be the expansiveness that you would think would happen because the parking lot isn't available. So yes.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Chairman, can I?
Yeah, if you would.
So just as a little bit of background for the public, I mentioned this to the board a couple of weeks ago. I did have am I coming through as echoey?
Yeah.
Yeah, just turn one of your,
Yeah,
I know you're
one
logged
of
in
the
twice,
devices on
turn
mute.
one off.
Is that better? No. Yeah. Okay. So I did have a conversation with the property owner, Warren Kelly, a couple of maybe a month ago now, and we're allowing them to park, allowing the employees to park at the golf course if the septic system project is not complete by the time that they reopen. This is not a long-term or a permanent solution by any stretch. It's only temporary in case they can open before the septic system project is done, which I think is unlikely. So, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, just a clarification for the record, so we understand what the license, what the changes that's being approved. Jill, this is only the deck?
Yes, sir. Yeah, only the deck, only that
And
area that's shown behind, in between the installed gates.
And it's only for the duration of the state of emergency?
It would be, I mean, it would be for as long as we could use it for. I mean, if you wanted to limit it, I suppose you could. But when Soul Bean or another tenant comes in that back space, it would need to be rediscussed. So we would prefer not to have it be temporary. We preferred for it to be a permanent solution because we don't see, quite frankly, capacity being, based on how the governor's handling this, we don't expect capacity to be up to 100% for quite a long time.
Okay, but the change, so I just want to be sure that the board understands what they're approving.
The change would be permanent until the landlord were to terminate it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question.
Yeah.
So
Good.
I see on the rendering here where the gate would be. How many, based on what we understand the state's opening guidelines would be, individuals would still have to stay a certain distance apart. And I'm thinking of the size of that seating area. What is your anticipated capacity in that red area to be? And then secondly, my second question is, what happens if it's lunchtime and there is a orthodontist appointment and an individual is going to be entering the orthodontist office that is next door?
We aren't going to be servicing people during that time. So it won't, when the orthodontist is open, because we're blocking that stairway, we will not be serving outside.
Is that the condition of the request that you're making?
No, it's a condition of the lease.
Okay. My concern is,
Just secondly to that first
Okay.
question, what is the anticipated seating capacity outside?
We had discussed this initially. We don't know because we don't know what we will be allowed to have. It has to comply. We don't know what it's going to be. Nobody can tell. I couldn't tell you if it could be 10 people or 20. I don't know the answer to that question. And I've been given no direction when I've attempted to get some, not from the town, by the way, but there is no direction anywhere to tell you.
Does this impact your actual liquor license as it stands now? I know you mentioned that it takes a long time to get through. Did you have to go before the state before?
Yeah. Sure, Mr. Cassiotis. Answer to that question is it does go before the ABCC to ratify whatever decision this board makes.
Okay.
Given the times, I'm assuming that the ABCC will act more quickly than normal, but it can take up to 6 weeks for them to approve.
Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, just so I'm clear, while it may be granted approval from the landlord to utilize this space, we're also looking for an amended common victular license as well as a license to serve alcohol to allow both in an outside premise, correct?
Yes, to serve the food. Well, I think I think you have to because they have to expand theirs, Mr. Cresta. So yes, because there was the ability to serve out there food, but that was sole beans. So you're 100% correct. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we do have a request for a public comment. Are you taking comments?
Well, I'm not sure if that's is it related to this agenda item?
Yeah, it is related to this. It's from Mike Cardillo. He's messaging me
Okay.
to make that request.
All right. Okay. All right. So my concern is this. It's that's always been an issue of concern for members of the town, the people that live there and nearby. I appreciate you wanting to get out in front of this as far as what's been going on with waiting for businesses to open and trying to be ready for that. But I don't know. I'm inclined to maybe thinking again about this being the actual venue, if that's the correct word, to make a motion on this. But with that, we can let the public comment take place if you want.
Okay, I'm going to unmute Mike, and Mike, if you want to make that comment.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Mike Cadillo from Meadow Drive, and my other concern is just the parking isn't good as it is, and so it should be limited to the COVID-19 crisis only. And if it doesn't affect it anymore, then possibly you can look at it later. But there isn't much parking as there is over there.
Okay. All right. The other thing I'm concerned with is if this were to pass, then we would be on the hook for basically leaving it as is, and it would be up to the landlord as to how long it would be allowed.
I would ask that in any event that the board vote tonight to allow it to happen during the COVID. I mean, I think it's essential that we support our local businesses, and businesses cannot survive on this minimal capacity. Restaurants cannot. At minimum, that should occur. I will also suggest that, in this particular area, it is abutting Route 114. This is not, this area is on the corner of the street. It's not going to expand capacity. In fact, it's simply trying to get capacity up so that they can meet margin. There won't, even if they say that this particular deck can house the normal capacity, it still won't be near 100% of the capacity of Maggie's. Accordingly, the parking, which has been an issue because people don't like it when people park on Meadow Drive, it's not going to be an issue because we're not going to be able to have as many people. There aren't. And, we are definitely asking for the help of the town because without it, it is going to be it's going to be a large struggle.
Jill,
Yeah.
what time is the operation of the orthodontics office?
It varies, and again, I don't know what it's going to be when COVID opens. So usually they close. That office, I think, usually closes. They're only open 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Sometimes till 5, sometimes till 6. Summer hours are different. And I don't know when they're going to reopen. That office isn't open right now, obviously. It's orthodonture. I hate to keep saying this, but I can't tell because it's all of these orders are just, they're not nimble, they're improperly issued, and they have no definite guidelines. It's terrible. I can't tell you.
And what time does Maggie's close?
It closes, it stops serving food officially at 10, but usually that place is pretty cleared out by about 9:30. I mean, it never goes later than that. I think they're absolutely, their doors are closed by 11 o'clock. I've never seen them open later.
What is their, Mr. Chairman, if I could, what is their current license of operation time? Do we know
I
that?
apologize. It got kind of scratchy.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. What is the current operation time on the existing license to serve alcohol?
Sure. I think I'm pretty confident it's like 11 until midnight. It might even be till 1, but we never open that late. There's no business that late.
Okay. And are you asking for certain conditions here, such as this would be seating only, no standing? I mean, I think and I understand the struggle that your client and every single restaurant is having right now in terms of nobody knows what timing is going to be. The governor put together a 4-step order that I still don't understand what it means, and I watched his press conference. And I'm trying to be kind when I say that. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes or anybody in that team's shoes. I know part of his reopening team were restaurant owners that are trying to provide guidance as well from their own industry. I think my biggest concern here is that we're asking to take a significant portion of the deck area, including the second and third egress to the deck area, and basically segregate it specifically for outdoor serving, food, alcohol. I'm not sure if this is for seating, is this for standing? We don't know what the requirements are going to be. We just do know that as we move through the 4 phases, there will be less and less requirement on social distancing and more an ability to move to whatever this new normal is. I'm just concerned I'm being asked to approve something that is going to be open-ended that normally if this was a brand new building and you were coming before us, you'd say, we'd like open outdoor seating and I'm asking for seating for 9 people or 12 people.
Yep.
And I understand completely that you can't even answer that now because, you may ask for 20 people to be seated there and the governor's order may only allow 5 because of the social distancing.
It's possible it won't even allow seating.
Yeah, so
that's why I don't want to say seating. I mean, I wouldn't mind if the current capacity of Maggie is about 140 people. We're expecting to be cut to 25% to 50%. I mean, if we could at least have up to, even if you said up to, how many people can you even fit there with 6 feet? But even if you said up to, 40 people out there, subject to social distancing, which means it'll be much less. That would be fine. And even if you said, look at, if when the COVID issue is over, come back and let's relook at what the seating has to be and whether or not it's been going well, whatever. I don't know how you'd want to phrase it, but that would be helpful to allow us to honestly open.
No, and I understand that. And then lastly, just one more comment, Mr. Chairman. I'm growing more and more convinced as we move through whatever these 4 phases are. At some point, the state and the governor is going to start deferring to local government to make more of these specific issues.
I hope so.
What these items mean. I open and welcome that opportunity, guidance from the state, which we don't have now. I think my big concern right now is the unknown and approving an expansion for outdoor use, which would allow a business to continue to operate. I don't want to see Maggie's or any other business in this town, whether it's a restaurant or otherwise, suffer any more than they have already. And I would expect this probably won't be the only request before this board to allow for some outdoor seating at restaurants as the governor moves through his
excuse me, Brett.
I'm just really concerned about the nebulousness, and it's not that you're being evasive, Jill. It's that it's the unknown.
Yeah, trust me, I wish I could answer all of your questions. I wish there were answers.
But I think, we could, get to those concerns by the conditions we put on an approval. For instance, that the deck, could be used, until such time as the, inside restaurant capacity can be 100%. As to the number of people that can be on the deck, and as to the hours that the deck can be used. So my suggestion is, the duration of time is until the inside capacity can go back to 100%, that 25 people be allowed on the deck, and that the deck can be used until 9 p.m.
Fine with us. Those conditions are more than reasonable because we're not allowed to put more people on the deck than the inside capacity and the outdoor deck can handle. So that makes abundant sense, Mr. Patakis.
And I also want to ensure that we are not going to have any conflict with the other tenant there, where we're utilizing public space in the building for dedicated for use for seating. And I know we're not able to see this here, but with that number, Costa, I don't know how that allows social distancing, which we understand the state is, if there's one thing we do know about social distancing, we all know there's a 6-foot limit. And it's, if you listen to what the Mass Restaurant Association and others have been trying to promote in their closure and their reopening process, I just want to make sure that we are not allowing for more there than would work, that we would be butting up against what the state mandates are. Because here's the thing that I don't like about the state mandates, because at some point when these are implemented, who has to enforce? It's the local government. And, if I'm enforcing something, or I'm having the town enforce something, I want it to be our mandates that are rational and reasonable.
Mr. Chairman, just if I might, there's a number of people who have been messaging me in the comments feature. I'm not sure if you want to allow any of those public comments, or if you'd like me to read them, whatever you would prefer at this point.
I suppose, I would, if you wouldn't mind, Tanya, if you could read, if they're not,
Okay. Sure. Yeah, they're mostly comments or questions, and you've answered some of them. Sherry Nichols was asking what time would the deck be open as far as noise level for neighbors. She's saying that in the summer with outdoor seating may be different because people will linger. Manny Garcia's says, our concern has been employees who park on Meadow Drive and stay late hours hanging out on the street. If they're allowed to park at the golf course, this would address the concern. Is there thoughts for signage on Meadow Drive to alleviate further concern? And Sherry Nichols also stated sole beam deck on Meadow side where houses are, but they close very early, so noise level was not an issue. So those were the comments we've had so far.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other discussions at all, or?
Costa, if what you are moving towards is a motion, I would ask that the seating capacity be for seating only, not seating and standing.
What I had contemplated was, up to 25, people given social distancing guidelines, whether they were standing or sitting. If it's standing only, it's just going to be drinking.
Well, it's not even just that. I'm not so concerned about what's being served. If they're standing, the likelihood of being able to enforce whatever the social distancing requirements are a lot different than tables and chairs where folks aren't moving tables around, for example. Again, I go back to the point of enforcement is going to be us, not the state.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think Charlie Baker's going to be here and enforce. I'm being snarky here, but it's going to be either to the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, or to the police. And I just, if this is going to happen, I want this to be clean and clear. And I completely understand that part of that is the license holder self-policing this as well.
And we most certainly will. If you want it to just be seating, it's fine. My concern is that they don't allow us to seat outside. That's my concern. They require us to stand. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, this social distancing, if I come with my husband, I don't have to stay 6 feet away from him. I'm not doing it in any event, nor do I stay 6 feet away from my young children. So I don't know how they're working it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion? The restaurants are going to be allowed to open under the third phase
Raise your hand.
of the reopening.
Yeah.
And so that's still 3 weeks out. The board will meet again on June 2nd. That would be before phase 3, phase 2 begins.
That doesn't work though.
We can get the health director to weigh in between now and then on what will be allowed in terms of capacity and whether it's seating or standing.
And I can explain why that doesn't work. We had to do this fast because the ABCC needs to issue its approval. If you wait till June 2nd, it will be until August before we can do it. If we get this done tonight with strict conditions, which we're fine with, then we'll actually be able to open when the third phase happens. If you do not do that, you will delay us by months because I have to then go back to the ABCC and submit. It is not your approval only that allows us to operate. We cannot operate till they ratify.
I'm confused how 3 weeks would turn into months of delay.
3 weeks will turn into 6 weeks of delay. I'm already looking at 3 weeks more for the ABCC, which will allow me to hit when the phase 3 comes in. That's why I've been very proactive. If I have to wait, I'm pushed out more. I just am, because now you've got your 3 weeks plus the ABCC's 3 weeks. If you were the sole authority, then it wouldn't be an issue. I'd be like, of course, that's fine, but you aren't.
Well, we are the sole authority on the common vic license.
Right, but you can't, people want to come and have an alcoholic beverage when they.
I completely understand that. I completely understand that. I think what the town administrator's point is, and really what my point is, Jill, is I am struggling with making an approval for something that, other than the guidance I'm getting from you, quite honestly, Jill, as the attorney for the applicant, with all due respect, I don't. Only thing I know is at some point we have to enforce what the state is going to lay down. It may be in conflict with what the license that we are granting you here, both for the food, common vic, and the alcohol. What I don't want this to turn into is an outdoor bar. I want this to turn into, if it gets approved, into an outdoor space that will allow the restaurant to continue to operate. And quite honestly, I'll be totally selfish here. As they continue to operate, we get tax revenue from it as well. We're taking a big hit in this town on meals tax that is not being collected because many of these restaurants aren't open to full capacity. And it looks like it's going to stay that for a long period of time. I'm just struggling with making an approval for something that I have no idea what is actually going to be allowed.
And I understand, I definitely understand, Mr. Cresta, which is why I said, I thought that the requirements and the limitations that were suggested by Mr. Prentakis made sense, first of all. Second of all, no matter what you approve, the governor, fortunately or unfortunately, has the right to tell you that they can limit it. So right now, you've got an issued license that we can't use. So they've already taken that away. They've already changed what the parameters are. And all I'm asking is that you allow us to open with a full service area in the back so that we can provide the town with tax revenue. And most importantly, you save the economic value of a restaurant that has lost a lot more than just tax revenue. And that's all. I think that if you could see fit to simply approve with those very limiting conditions, that you will find Maggie's to be a good neighbor, a good participant, and an honorable licensee. I don't think they've ever had an issue. They've never had a complaint relative to the operation of their licensed premises. And I can't imagine parking is going to be an issue given the diminished capacity at this particular site.
All right. All right, so
I will make a motion to amend, the Maggie's Farm all alcoholic liquor license at 119 South Main Street for the duration of the COVID emergency, which is defined as until the restaurant can use 100% of its inside capacity, to be able to serve food and alcohol on the deck until 9 p.m., provided that only up to 25 people are seated on the deck, given social distancing guidelines.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. So with that, is there any further discussion? All right, without any further discussion, then I'll ask the clerk to make a roll call.
Selectman Cresta.
No.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
No.
Myself, yes.
I'm not sure what that does for us.
Motion fails. On a
Okay.
tie.
So you're denying the right for them to serve on the deck. Okay.
I just so I'm clear, Mr. Chairman, I know the vote's already happened. I'm not opposed to the concept. I'm just being asked to make a decision now without any guidance of what the requirements are going to come from the state.
And I understand, Mr. Cresta, but you have to understand they
And
have no option.
I am
And you just made them not be
Jill,
able
if I
to
could
open.
finish, Jill, if I could finish, you're not on the board, please.
I
Let me
know.
finish the concept. I am willing to revisit this, and again, there's a member of the board that's not here at the moment, and this board may be willing to revisit this at a point when we have more guidance from the state. Trust me, I want more guidance. I'm being asked to make a decision on a whim here. And quite honestly, this board has to be prepared to come up with some processes when others come before us.
And I don't disagree. I just think that, we need, I mean, as a resident of the town, I'm interested in seeing restaurants and other businesses get the support that are needed to just get them through this economic devastation. That's all.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you. So are you actually, I don't understand one thing. Are you continuing it to actually try and do something in June 2nd? I don't understand what the actual resolution or final decision. I understand you said, no, I can't do it. I understand that. Now it doesn't go to the ABCC. I can appeal, but I'm not going.
The vote fails with a tie.
Right. No, but I meant Mr. Crested said something about going forward, Mr. Sheehan, about going forward at the June meeting. I don't think you're going to get any additional direction, but I don't know if what you're looking for.
So I guess I'll further clarify on this. Is I said I don't have a problem revisiting this once we get some guidance from the state on what the expectation is around restaurants. The governor gave basically zero guidance on this in his announcement on Monday. Zero. He stated that it's in a future step, but not what it is. He has a team of folks working on it, including a gentleman from the town next door that owns several restaurants that is serving as the co-chair of his committee. I'm just looking for some guidance on restaurants. And then I would like to revisit this, not just for here or other restaurants that come before us. That's all I'm asking.
So the reason I'm asking if this is going to simply then be a vote by the board to continue is because to be able to end up having to wait till your June 2nd meeting, do I reapply? I don't know what to do, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Do I have to reapply?
Yes.
Do I have to resubmit? Do I have to renotice? Do I have to do everything again? Or can we continue to the June 2nd meeting in order to not add to the burden of this restaurant?
Well, we won't, we've taken the vote. It has failed. So a continuance wouldn't be, there's no need to continue it. You would have to refile it again, reapply again.
Correct. That's correct.
Well, you could, all right, you can opt to allow a continuance, but if you choose not to, that's what I'm asking. So if that's the decision, that's fine. I defer to the board.
They can't after the vote is taken. They could have before you pushed for the vote. They could have.
I didn't necessarily push for the vote. I simply asked, and there was a motion made by Mr. Prentakis. That's all. The hearing hadn't been closed, so we could do whatever the board chose, but that's fine. I can, if they decide to do that, we will reapply if there's guidance.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay.
Now I see there's a reference to 189 South Main Street, or was that?
So basically, that is where Maggie's is going to go in probably November when they open. So back in when we got the site plan approval and the original liquor license to operate a restaurant at 189, we were told to come back once there were more definite plans relative to the outdoor patio. The outdoor patio obviously has seating and there's a restaurant area essentially. And now we're back because that's what the board asked us to do, is to come back when we knew. We know now and are back here to seek approval for expanding the liquor license to the outdoor patio area beginning in October or whenever the restaurant would open. Okay.
Okay.
Confused.
Yeah.
I didn't think that we asked for this to come back at a later time. I thought
Yeah.
determination was made at the time for not approving outdoor seating, unless I missed something from that meeting.
Yeah, you definitely, it was, you can't deny outdoor seating. So the restaurant is by right entitled to outdoor seating. We can't serve alcohol out there, Mr. Cresta, until we come back to the board to seek the right to serve alcohol out there. And the reason it had been said before not to do so is because you wanted to understand more about where the patio area was going to be and how the restaurant was going to set up. That was the reason, because we had yet to get all of the approvals. So this is the approved site plan. I think it's actually not even approved site plan. It actually shows that footprint you see outside. And that patio pavered area is actually already graded out and created. The walls there, part of the fence is up. So you wanted us to come back after the site plan was done. And that's what we're doing.
Okay. I think I recall too that we agreed there wouldn't be any outdoor entertainment.
100%, Mr. Cassiotis. Yeah, no outdoor entertainment, none.
No televisions, no, music or any of the like.
Yeah, you're not allowed to bring any music or entertainment outside. And we agreed to that.
Okay.
Always. We agreed to that. I think we always agree to that at all the restaurants where they actually have outdoor service. So this particular patio area, it's already out there. There's a kind of a wall that already exists. There's going to be, there's a fence that ends at one point, but it's going to come all the way down to beyond, if you can see where on the right-hand side where you see a house all the way forward, there's a garage, there's a patio area. Then if you meander closer to North Main, it's probably, I apologize, South Main Street, you see an existing garage. And then even farther forward, you see the house. There'll be a fence on top of it's probably a 4-foot change in grade. So there'll be a fence that sits on top of that goes beyond the garage all the way to the existing, the front of the existing home, just to separate the properties.
Now it looks like the parking, you're planning the parking for the new building to be behind the structure, the way I'm looking at that?
Right, that was requested from the, basically all the town departments. So there's this desire to try and create businesses up front so people, they consider it to be more walkable, walk-friendly. So we were requested to put all the parking behind and not to put the restaurant further back toward the rear line, because our current building is like that. You know how you drive by and all the parking's in the front?
Yes.
So they wanted us to shift so that we didn't have all the black pavement in front and we had a pretty building with, the lights and the plantings, etc.
Right. And did you say, I'm sorry if you said the capacity you planted for the outdoor deck?
Oh gosh, yeah. So the capacity is already even shown on the plan. So you have a certain amount of seating capacity, and then you have the capacity for the restaurant, and that's all included. So the seating capacity inside is about 134. The total occupancy is 200. The occupancy for outside, who knows now, right? But it is probably somewhere around 40 people is what the architect has shown based on square footage. But I don't know what it's really going to be. October, they're going to still be on low amount, Mr. Cassiotis, but the project's approved for 200 total, inside and out.
Inside now. Right.
If you were to look at Maggie's restaurant, it's probably, I don't know, 1.5 times its size, maybe a little bit bigger.
Right.
It's bigger. It's a bigger restaurant.
And I'm not quite related, but and you, the initial liquor license, I know you were trying to get it so that it was, you know, legitimately feasible for you to take the project on.
Exactly.
Is the holder or the, you know, the actual manager of that, is that the same, or is that still fluid, you know, as opposed to,
I mean, when it actually opens, you know, who knows who, I mean, the manager could potentially change, but
Right.
for right now, it remains the same. You know, you can't, you know, by that time, will the manager of the actual operation, how they go in and they actually are there all the time, that'll be the on-site manager. It will be one that'll get rehired in October.
okay. Like you said, hopefully we're better
Mr. Cassiotis,
straight by then.
I'm hoping.
Okay. You getting any text, Tanya?
Yeah.
Is there any further comment for this?
I'm not having any in the chat feature. I'm not sure if anyone else on, I'm not
Alright.
seeing anyone that has a comment.
Could I comment?
Go right ahead. Identify
Hi,
yourself.
it's Dan Greek. I'm 185 South Main. I'm the actual building right next door to Jill Men's.
There you go.
Yes.
So yes, I'm just opposed to the outside alcohol because I have a 6-year-old daughter. And that building that you're looking at, real close to the property line, closest to the patio, that is where we live.
Okay.
It is a split use building. So the first floor is the Cash for Gold place, the Auto Sound place, and then the second floor is a residence. I mean, I've been here for about 11 years, 12 years, and I don't know if it's always been a resident, but it's, you know, the first floor is commercial.
I've been here for 23 years. The building's been here for 100. It's been a residence the whole time.
Yeah, I think so.
It's been a business for 23.
Okay.
What, they'll ask the board, do we have any discussions on hours of operation outside and capacity? Was that something that we had discussed or wanted to discuss? Anybody? No?
Well, I think the outside, you know, with given, you know, the closeness to residences should be earlier than the inside hours of the restaurant.
Right. I tend to agree. All right. So at
Mr.
this
Chairman, excuse
yeah,
me.
go ahead.
I'm just seeing that one person looks like they've raised their hand. I'm not sure if that's indicating a comment. Zulkarnaya Mess. I'll unmute them just to.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on Meadow Drive, very close to Maggie's farm.
Okay. And your name, sir?
Mike Manson.
Okay, thanks.
My wife is Zul.
Okay, go ahead. You had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I was looking at a 1973 Board of Appeals paper, decision of the board, and there are 5 things that are listed given the restructuring of where Maggie's farm is now, when it went from Daniel Fuller to its current its structure. And there are 6 stipulations that the Board of Appeals passed. And number 3 of that is there shall be no parking on Meadow Drive.
This is the wrong application, sir.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going back to 1973 to indicate to indicate to the board that at one time there was this strong consideration for the residents on Meadow Drive, and that they did pass, there shall be no parking on Meadow Drive. And so I'm
Right.
hoping the reconfiguration of the current parking lot at Maggie's Farm will allow all the cars to be on their grounds and none of them to be on Meadow Drive.
Right. Now, the first thing to your question, the town has always, and with the landlord, always made a good faith effort to enforce that there aren't any vehicles, you know what I mean, for the business parked on Meadow Drive, what with signage and even with the business and police enforcement. But if I could draw your attention to it, we moved on from that item and we're on to another one on the agenda, but I will bring to your attention that the one on the agenda we're discussing now would make the point moot, because it would be when that building is done on South Main Street, they'll be moving Maggie's Farm from its existing location near Meadow Drive down to 189 South Main Street.
So Maggie's Farm is leaving its current spot?
That's their plans, yes.
Okay.
If I can speak that way, Jill, I don't want to speak
You
for you.
most certainly may, Mr. Cassiodis.
Yeah. So that's,
Okay. Okay.
I
Thank you.
hope yeah, okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so,
And just, if you haven't noticed, Mr. Chairman, Tim Hooton has just arrived at the meeting. Oh, did he disappear?
okay.
He was just trying to get in. Okay, he might not technically be here yet.
Okay. All right, I want to move along on this. So there's no other discussion or any, I mean, I'd like us to discuss maybe, modifying the outdoor hours in regards to the indoor hours. It is, again, it is a commercial way and it is on a commercial business and such, but there are, residences nearby.
And I do agree. It's just that I am completely in a commercial zone. I don't abut any residential property anywhere. I just want that to be made aware. And Mr. Greeke himself runs a retail shop on his first floor, and we are right on 114. I don't mind somewhat of a restricted hour at night in Middleton. It's not going to go late, and I have no desire to, be difficult with this particular permit. It's just, this is a commercial zone. It's right on 114.
Yeah. But you would agree with an alcohol license that allows you to serve till 12:30. That's, we wouldn't want to leave. We wouldn't want to leave that.
No, I understand that, Mr. Cassiodis, very much. I do.
All right. So will someone make a motion? Is there a motion for this, or motion with condition at all? No motion. All right. And
I'll move, that the all alcohol restaurant liquor license at 189 Main Street be altered to encompass the outdoor seating area, provided, that service stops at 9 o'clock.
That's fine.
okay. All right. And a second.
Make a second.
All right. We have a motion and a second with a condition. So if we could, Mr. Moreski, make the roll call.
Before I make the roll call, is Tim going to vote on this?
I wasn't here from the beginning, so I think I have to
Yes.
not vote at this point.
Okay, just checking. Selectman Prentakis.
Actually, before we get to a vote, I just have one question.
Yeah.
So I need some clarity at exactly what the seating is going to be here. Only thing I have is a picture in front of me with a yellowed area that says paver patio with gate. I don't see any setup for seatings. I know, Joe, you told us that it would be 40 people for a grand total of 200. I'm just trying to figure out what 40 people look like there. I don't know what the layout's going to be and the rest. Usually when we get some clarity on a license, we at least have some square footage and otherwise.
Sure. It's 13 by 25. The reason there's no setup is the architect originally had done it and then didn't know how to finalize it, because no matter what, it's the same exact thing, I hate to say this, the same exact situation. They don't really know how much seating to put out or how to do it. It'll be about 40 people is in the normal course, which means 10 tables of 4.
So I remember when you had come before us prior, I can't remember when last year.
I know.
You were showing a strip that actually had, if I remember, it was like 6 tables.
There were. This is a little bit different area. It's a little bit wider.
But, and at the time, and I understand that you brought the building more forward, but at the time the building was further back, and you were, if I remember correctly, I'm going by memory here.
Of course, please.
You or the board members can refresh my memory. We were looking at the time, I thought it was like seating for like 15, 16 people total.
Oh, no, it was always about 40 people.
I just remember there was a small strip. When it came to us, somebody had drawn a line on it and said outdoor.
Oh, I understand. I apologize. It showed some limited seating, but it was all, the architect had always contemplated kind of, okay, where are we going to go? We're going to make it probably a little bigger. And it was always included in the occupancy numbers for him. You have to work it. So the inside, the bathrooms, you know, when you're looking at your architectural plans, so it was always contemplated there'd be 40. I do know what you mean. They showed like a couple, I'm trying to get that old application. They did show them for like, I think it was 6 seats, but it was 6 seats of 4.
Okay. And could you tell me, so I see that there's going to be a gate here. What type of, what type of wall, how high of the wall, what is the screening?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, my concern is, and I guess folks will be sitting there looking out at the highway and smelling the Richardson's farm. I guess the biggest thing I'm trying to understand is what level of screening for both visual and sound is going to be provided to abutters. Because, and I completely understand what you're saying of the zoning of the property next door, but you know, sometimes fences and screening make great neighbors.
No, and listen, we agree. So basically right along the side of the paved patio with the gate, there is a wall on Mr. Greeky's side. It's about a 4-foot tall wall. And when we excavated our site, we actually brought our grade down. So now we have literally a 4-foot wall on each side. So there's a 4-foot wall separating from his grade to mine. So assume we're on grade. So there's a 4-foot wall. On top of that, there will be a 6-foot stockade fence that will be made of the exact materials you see in the back when you drive by. It's that, what's it called? Maintenance-free material, you know, like AZAX. But it has like a woodish look. So that's going to go all the way past the paved area, all the way past the front of Mr. Greeky's home. So where his home ends next to the street is where the fence will end, all the way down. So that 6-foot fence is elevated by between 4 feet and 3 feet, all the way to maybe like the middle of his home. So there is about at any point in time, either a 10 to 10, about a 10-foot block visually.
And
especially near the favored area.
And just because I'm not sure if this is, I can't see the scale on this.
Yeah.
How far is the yellow area from the property line of both the property in front and then the property that's behind that on that park?
So from his house, it's about 30 feet. His garage is on my property, maybe like a foot onto my property. So you can see where it runs along the side. You don't see where the end is because it's on my side. You can see that. So that, I don't know how far away. When you look to the right, the paved patio area was situated so that we would be near his parking lot. So he has a commercial parking lot behind his building. You know, he's got, I don't know how many spaces he has. I've never counted them, but it's a commercial lot. It's where people park or supposed to park when they go to his building. So we purposely put the patio back there so it would abut that. And that's at the tallest point of the wall as well as the fence.
So if you were standing in that lot, the individuals that are in the patio area would be about 10 feet below the top of the fence.
Oh, yeah. I have pictures of it,
No,
but I don't know.
I'm trying to orient myself here because
Yeah, of
I
course.
knew you changed grading there when I drove by, but I was trying to get my arms around. I mean, are we looking at somebody's going to be in their yard, their property?
Oh, no. We don't, no.
Okay.
So when you even look at it, so the way it works is he's got his commercial parking lot behind. That's where the paved area is for the restaurant. Okay, it's not a backyard, it's paved parking lot. Then you have that garage, which is about, a normal garage with a pitched roof. So that lies in between our outdoor area and his home. So really, if you try to look out his home, when I looked from the patio to his home, I couldn't see the top top windows because his garage blocks it.
Okay. Thank you.
But it was situated to be able to avoid that.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, of course. I appreciate the question, Mr. Cresta. Thank you.
Could I ask one more question?
Please.
So if the hours were to be, say, 8, 9 o'clock, would that be all outdoor operations are ceasing at 8? Or is it the last drink would be served at 8 or 9?
The board, when it comes to liquor license, the last drink is served at 9 o'clock outside.
So it would be the last drink it's served. They could be drinking out there till 10, 10:30. So if they ordered 2.
No. If we curtailed the outdoor hours, that would, regardless of what they were doing out there, would end at that time.
Well, just so we're clear, we're not going to, at 9 o'clock, come and scoop everybody's plates up and tell them they have to go.
Right.
But
But my 6-year-old is asleep by 9 o'clock. So.
And I understand that. I mean, we are. This isn't a bar. It's not outdoor. With music and anything else. I mean, if I didn't have a liquor license, they could eat out there till 12:30 at night. I don't think people do. In Middleton, it's not there. Look, drive by Nick Yebba's. They're not out there. They go out when it's beautiful out, and they do. We purposely situated ourselves to be distant, to be far enough away from the residential component of the commercial property. And, we're trying to be a respectful neighbor by designing it the way in which we did.
Additional question. We don't actually have, or do we, an approved common victular license for this location yet?
You don't file, I don't think yet. I have to defer to Mr.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So, I guess to what Mr. Greeke was asking and for the board's edification, this discussion is around the alcohol license and the serving of alcohol out there. When the point comes before the common vic license, which is the serving of food, not alcohol, and I assume you will have an entertainment license that you'll be asking off for the facility if you're going to have live music inside. That's when this board would put restrictions on both food at certain hours outside as well as entertainment being inside only.
Yeah, we agreed inside only when we did our site plan as well.
Okay. And Jill, if you were opening in October, November here, when would you expect to be coming before us for a common vic license?
My guess is Jeff will probably do that August, September.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cresta.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion, has not been amended, correct? And do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. If I could ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Thank you, board members. I appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you at Maggie's.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Be well, everyone.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we'll see at item number 4 now is a discussion of the COVID-19 state of emergency, stay-at-home order, and Town of Middleton reentry planning. I believe, Mr. Sheehan, you'll comment on that?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly to give the board an update and the public an update on our reopening. We were, like everybody, we were anxious to see what the governor revealed yesterday with his statewide reopening plan. The phasing of that and the sub phasing of that wasn't completely clear going into yesterday. There are 4 phases of the reopening, the 4th being basically back to normal or back to new normal. The first phase, which started yesterday, is really has 3 sub phases. Each is about a week, and doesn't specifically address municipal operations, but kind of addresses us indirectly as office space. So we convened a working group here that started getting together about 2 weeks ago to identify the issues that we would need in order to reopen and start working towards a return to what, whether you call it normal or new normal. Tanya has been spearheading that. We've got people from all of the affected buildings weighing in on that. It is not I would say it's not a top-heavy group. It's a group, sort of a cross-sectional group of the organization, because we wanted not just to hear what the department heads wanted to see or what they were concerned about, but what the so the rank and file employees wanted to see and what they were concerned about. So we're still working through that. Each building is a little bit different. The library, for instance, is probably going to be certainly will be a later opening, I think, than town hall or inspectional services. However, they can do curbside retail, essentially curbside retail next week or in the next sub phase. So they're planning on getting ready to do that in the next week or so. Council on Aging is probably going to be the last building to open, and that's because of the susceptible nature of the population that they serve. Memorial Hall and 195 North Main, we're working through the details on that, and again, each building is a little bit different, and so we don't have the sort of the full unveiling today. Suffice to say, we're not going to be throwing the doors open all at once and welcoming back all of the employees and welcoming in the public. We're still going to be on a limited basis on all of our buildings, and each one will be a little bit different. Inspectional services, probably a lot will be done, will continue to be done remotely to the extent that it can be. Employees are going to continue to work on a somewhat staggered shift so that they're not all in there together, and contractors and others are going to be encouraged to continue to use the website and do what they can remotely and electronically, and then if they need to come in, do so by appointment. Memorial Hall is a little bit more challenging in a way. We've got a couple of windows that are already set up so that we can pretty easily accommodate people. The collector's window and the town clerk's window, there is glass there, so there is there's already a physical barrier, which is helpful. There's an area where people can slide things under if they have a bill to pay or an application to make, to submit. The assessor's office is a little bit more challenging because that is behind a door, and it is an open counter in that space, and then 2 individuals in that space. So we're working through those. We won't be changing too much before we get to June, and at some point in June we will be opening up a little bit more. But again, it's going to take us a while before we get to back to what might be called a normal operation. So, Tanya, I don't know if you want to weigh in on any of this. I probably left something out, but feel free to fill in the blanks for me.
No, thank you. That's pretty much it. Thanks to the employees that are trying to help us figure this out. We'll have a number of trainings and we're doing reconfigurations and keeping an eye on the governor's orders. So it's been definitely, as Jill was alluding to earlier, it's tough to predict everything, but we're doing the best we can, while balancing all the different priorities and keeping our employees as safe as possible.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, a question for you, Andy. First off, and thank you to you and Tanya and all the department heads and just as importantly, all the employees. While many of us that are in positions that were able to be sent home and work from home, that hasn't been the case for many of you. I know that some operations are still happening within Town Hall. Surely the great team down at the Council on Aging has been providing meals and services to a lot of folks. While the library may be closed to the public, they haven't been closed per se. And nothing fully to this point, but I would ask if it is part of your reopening discussion to give some thought about employees that may be at a high-risk category or maybe caring for individuals in a high-risk category, that we are giving some serious thought to accommodating those prior to any point when we know that we have either a vaccine or some type of solution and treatment that can render this less potent. And I know a lot of companies as well as the state are giving that a lot of thought on their employees. I'm sure you haven't ignored it. I just wanted to give a call out to ensure that we are putting that into our thought process. Because I know you open up in both a timely but at the appropriate manner as well.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't expect, like I said, it's going to be a while before we get to something looking like normal. We also know that there are going to be people that, for a variety of reasons, will not be able to be back in the office at the same, physically in their office, the same number of hours or the same number of days per week that they were here before, whether they're at a higher risk population or they've got children that are not in school and don't have summer camp or daycare or what have you. So we're going to be making individual accommodations for people in order to meet their needs and continue to get our work done. I will say, I think I said this at a meeting a while ago, it has gone surprisingly well. If you had asked me 4 months ago, what would happen if we had to shut down and have everybody work from home? I would not have predicted this. And it shows the resiliency of our workforce, of our employees, and the dedication that they have. We've got projects that are happening as a result of COVID-19 and the remote work environment that probably wouldn't have seen this much attention if we were working in our normal setting here 5 days a week or whatever the individual's schedule was. So there have been, it's been a pain in the neck in many respects, but it's also allowed for a number of projects to get taken up that otherwise wouldn't. So we'll continue to work that. Like I said, there'll be accommodations for people that will extend beyond the implementation of phase 4. We're already looking ahead to next fall, and if school is open, great. There are some experts already, questioning whether school will be open, and so that we may not be in a lockdown situation or stay-at-home situation as we are now, but if schools are not open or not open fully, or daycares are not open fully, then there are going to be additional wrinkles to this whole thing, and we'll work through those as they come up on a case-by-case basis.
Andy, have you given any thought to, should this happen again, maybe if things aren't completely closed down, but moving toward a different alternate work schedule that maybe at the same time may allow town hall, for example, to be open at different hours, that may allow individuals that are maybe they're sharing offices, that there's some concern around there. But secondly, to that point on school being closed and the effect that that can have on staff. I mean, I want to ensure that we're as accommodating as possible while work is getting done. This may be the new normal for a while, for a long time. But is there any possibility that if you move to a, for example, a split shift? I mean, my company and our corporate headquarters is going to do exactly like that, and allow people in a shared responsibility to find ways to juggle calendars, allow folks to be there and follow the required social distancing or the smart social distancing.
Well,
yes,
we got to remember is we're subject to unions too. So it's not
No,
like
I
you
understand that.
can't split it and just say, hey, we're going to put you on at nights. That everything's bargained. So
No, I completely understand that.
and you might say it's perfectly logical and it helps the person, but the union might say, no, we're not going to allow it.
Right. Yeah. So taking the leaving the union piece out of it, and that's not anything to be dismissed or dismissive about. We have talked about that and about altered schedules, whether it's split shifts or longer days with the split shift within that, or 4 days with split shifts within that. A number of different varieties of things, and we haven't made any determinations and not ready to come forward with a recommendation for anything, or not ready to go to the unions with anything in that regard. But that is a possibility, Brian, that we could do that, where it would make it easier to maintain social distancing. I mean, let's face it, people are going to be reluctant to get back into that normal environment for a while. Eventually it might come back, but I think it's going to be a while. And so it might make sense for one employee to work 8 to 2 and another to work 10 to 6. And either we have a short period of overlap, or we have some sort of an alternate arrangement where they can be, one of them can be remote for a portion of their shift, or remote for a day, or something like that. And I can certainly see there will be a whole different work environment and scheduling environment as a result of this. I don't think that what we're used to is not, it's unlikely to return in exactly the same form.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's all we have to say on the
Sorry, I thought I lost
reopening stuff. It'll become clearer as we get through the phases and as we get into the details or finalize the details of our reopening. I've one closing comment. I've said to the employees throughout this whole thing, the last several months, as we implement new things, we're in many respects kind of groping in the dark, and we know that, and we want the employees to know that, not so that they won't trust our judgment. We hope that they trust our judgment. We make no claims of infallibility, and we know, and we have proven repeatedly that what we lay out one week is likely to change the next week. So what we implement or what we lay out, say on June 1st, which is a Monday, that might change by June 8th. It might change by June 3rd. And so, we have to be constantly sort of rejiggering this thing so that we get it right and keep it right. And that'll continue for a while.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Very much has been crazy times. Okay, do we have, for the next item, do we have Town Clerk Eileen Twist able to discuss the annual town election so far scheduled for June 20th?
I'm here.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Clerk. What can you tell us?
The election is so far scheduled for Saturday, June 20th. The hours are going to be 10 to 4 at Fuller Meadow. We're considering lots of options for setting it up. I think we're getting there, talking to clerks statewide to see what they're doing.
Right.
So it's a difficult plan. It's a difficult execution, obviously. We've done a town-wide mailing now. The last of the mailings are going out tomorrow with a letter explaining what's going on, and early voting applications in that, along with that letter, so that they can simply request a ballot. And we're well over 100 requests already, which is quite interesting because we don't usually have that much of a interest in a town election.
Right.
So we think once it hits all the households, people will hopefully respond. They are a little confused about whether it's for the September 1 primary and the November election.
Right.
But when they go back and read the letter, they understand it's just for the annual. So,
Right.
So far so good. We're going to try to move ahead. We'll see. I'm trying to get election workers. Some of my regulars don't feel comfortable. I'll try to, I'll look at my numbers soon and see what my staffing looks like. If I have to get a waiver from the state to decrease, I will. I prefer not to. And then I may recruit more workers because we're certainly going to need them for the fall. And there's
Right.
people that out there that may be willing to step up now. So we'll be doing some vigorous recruiting.
Right. I've had my.
I'm sorry, what? Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead, Rick. What?
No, I was just saying, I've had my application for the mail-in voting for about a week now. So
Yeah.
And then I should go back and read it again. But if you could, when's the deadline for returning those applications?
Well, it's up until the noontime the day before the election.
Noontime. The day before. Okay.
Yeah. So we're certainly going to be very understanding of this, and the last day to register to vote is June 10th, and through the emergency legislation, it's been altered from 2 to 4 and 7 to 8 in our office. But certainly we've included in that letter the fact that they can register online at registertovote.ma.com.
Right.
But they are more than welcome to call us, and our voter register, our website is prepared for this, the town clerk's page. They can get their voter registration application, they can get their early ballot application, and all of the information is there as well, in addition to the letter we sent them with the application and the link to register to vote. But if they want to come there, I'm going to be in the office on June 10th to facilitate the last day to register to vote. So beyond that, any questions?
Because folks are obviously out and about more in their car, do we have any notification showing up at the library electronic sign on this schedule?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. They're all just getting their letters now. Nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
So we're
Probably
doing.
thought that we didn't have a May election, so.
Yeah, I don't know if they've realized that or not. But certainly I can email Melissa and have her put it on the electronic sign. I'm in the office every day. So if people knock on the door or the window, which I have to register to vote. We certainly help them. We're helping people every day for various needs. So I imagine if there's an uptick, although we are not allowing them to vote. We're not doing over-the-counter voting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, but social media, we've put it out on social media. I'm getting a lot of feedback from that. And the townwide mailing has made a big difference. And I think people are more comfortable with that at this point. They're looking forward to the fall, being able to do this very same thing and not come early vote.
Right.
Because that's going to be a big challenge. But we're trying not to confuse them for the fall. Just address the annual town election right now.
Right.
Because we're very much up in the air until all of the election hearings sort of come out in the wash. From the hearings, whatever comes out in the wash and the changes for the fall, we'll deal with.
So Eileen, could you remind us, and for the handful of folks that are actually online watching the meeting as well as the media that's on the line as well, could you remind, we do have some slots on the ballot where there aren't any candidates running. And
right.
We can get the word out if folks.
So I have been talking to the press, and I have a release going out on social media. So currently I have a planning board seat for 5 years open, no candidate. I have 2 slots for housing authority open, 1 5-year, 1 2-year, no candidate. We have a Middleton School Committee open, no candidate, but I was contacted by a potential write-in candidate. So we're working with her to try to guide her through the process, just to get her name out there through social media.
Yeah, I'm only asking this because there's going to be a large number that are voting early through the ballot, through the mail-in ballot. I just want to make sure that hopefully some good people are willing to stand up and put their name as a.
We're hoping we do get some calls. We really discourage people from writing in Tom Brady, because that's sort of what they're calling us and saying, like, well, what do you do? What about these open spots? Should we just put anybody? Like, oh, wouldn't that be funny? No, it's actually not. But
well, we've moved on.
Think about well, those are the calls we get. I guess Middleton hasn't moved on from Tom Brady, but we're hoping I can get a name so that if people say, do you know of somebody who genuinely wants it? We're trying to recruit people, but so far, the only one that's reached out to me is someone for school committee. So I'm hoping we can continue to increase some interest so that we get enough write-ins that we get a candidate.
Good. Thanks, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks again, Eileen.
All right. Oh, and I would add, if anybody wants to come work the election, reach out. I have plenty of work for people to do. It's a short day.
And Eileen will buy pizza when it's all over.
Of course I will. Of course I will. Socially distant eating it, of course.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's continue on now to a continued review and discussion for our June 10th, 2020 annual town meeting, whether or not to keep the date.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've been sort of chasing our tails on town meeting. We started at the normal, which would have been May 12th. We bumped out to June 10th out of concern that the stay-at-home order would not have been lifted. And we've been kind of looking at that for a few weeks now, or a month now, as the potential date. The lingering concern is not so much the stay-at-home order, although that's still a concern, but local legislative bodies, city councils, town meetings, town councils, those are exempt from the stay-at-home order. They're not exempt from the concern, the legitimate concern that people may feel about coming out and gathering in what would normally be a room with 100 to 150 people. So in working with Eileen and Barb Pacelli, the moderator, we are recommending pushing out the town meeting another 2 weeks to June 24th. We had talked about a later June meeting a while ago. I think Costa had originally raised it to have a sort of fallback late June date. 24th is also a Wednesday. Town council is available that night, which is one of the concerns that we had, is being able to get council in the room for the meeting. This gives us another couple of weeks to see the reopening of the economy and businesses and all of that, and hopefully gives a level of comfort to residents to come out and take part in this process. We also want to explore a reduced quorum, and there is a bill floating on at the legislature at Beacon Hill. It's been approved I believe it was approved in the Senate initially, and it's now in House Ways and Means. It's not clear what's holding it up, but one of the provisions in the bill would allow for a reduction of quorum down to as low as 10% of what the normal quorum requirement is. Our quorum is 100. We would not recommend going down to 10, which would be the lowest possible. But we think something around 35 is appropriate in order to get enough people in the room to be representative. You take the board members, the finance committee members, the people that are checking in, voters at the door, sort of regular attendees that we can always count on, and a few others, and we think 35 is manageable. We talked initially about 50. We're frankly worried about being able to attract 50 people, just because of the concern that we think people are going to have in gathering in that space. We do recommend having it at Howe Manning in the gymnasium. The seating capacity is 675. We can spread that out, basically every other row, set up every other row so that there's a good distance between rows, or even every third row, so that there's at least 6 feet between where somebody would be sitting and the back of the chair in front of them. And then, we think we could still easily accommodate 200 or 300 in there if we actually had that kind of a turnout, which again, we don't expect. So that's what we recommend doing. If the bill doesn't pass soon, there's an option that we have to go to court to get a reduced quorum. The town of Marblehead did that. Our council did that for Marblehead. So they know that process. Marblehead dropped their quorum from 300 to 30, which is obviously that's a 10% drop, or a drop to 10% of the normal. Again, we wouldn't recommend going to 10%, but we think 35 or so is reasonable. The other thing that it does is it further limits the warrant articles that we can take up. So right now we're at 17 articles. We culled that down at our meeting 2 weeks ago with the finance committee, and of the 17, so we're limited under the statute and And if we went to court, we would be limited to taking up only those articles that are necessary, necessary spending articles for next fiscal year. So that would knock off 5 articles, leave us with a total of 12. Barb
So,
Pacelli
Andy,
is on.
Is
Yeah.
anything that is spending determined to be necessary? So like a zoning article, like the article for the overlay would be deemed not necessary, but would,
Right.
I don't know, the 150,000 for paving, for example, or would that be deemed necessary?
So that's part of the capital budget. So the 2 paving things are the Chapter 90, the authorization to spend Chapter 90 monies, and the money that we put towards paving out of local funds. That's part of our capital budget. I talked to council. Council says that the capital budget is a legitimate, necessary spending article. I think you could
have
make
a police department without cruisers.
right. I think you could make the argument that the contribution to the OPEB trust fund is not necessary. I've included it in, I would include it, but I wouldn't argue strongly if the board wanted to pull that and do that in the fall, for instance.
So explain to me a little bit about the rationale for not taking a look at a 1/12 and delaying this, into July or early August, when all indications are that we will be in a substantially better time frame for having a crowd, so to speak. I'm not opposed to reducing our quorum. I would be opposed to moving us to 10 members being the quorum.
Right.
But I don't have a problem moving the quorum down, but I'm wondering if we went the 1/12 option, for example, we still have, if I remember correctly, the ability for some of those payments that you need to make up front. For example, the Maya payment, when we pay up in front, we get a 15% discount in our insurance. Is my understanding things like that, or the quarterly payment that would have to happen to Masco, or the payment to Essex Tech. Explain to me maybe why a 1/12 in a July or an August town meeting.
Andy, can I hop in here?
And I'm asking that because I think Boxford and Topsfield are heading that direction anyway.
Yeah, so
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
If you don't mind, one of the things that I'm looking at is, okay, let's say things are better. You are now talking about July and August. Everybody that was going to have a vacation the first 6 months is now going on vacation. Once this thing breaks, we're not going to get any better showing in July and August than we're going to get in June. I think we'll get a better showing in June. I just think that, as a practical point of view, of putting people in the seats, you do this in the middle of a hut, in an unair conditioned building, you're just, it's not any better.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the concept of getting people in July and August. What I'm more interested in is the folks that want to be there on June 10th or June 20, whatever the date is we're looking at, but are 75 years old and concerned being there, that have never missed a town meeting since they've been the age of 18.
I bet you they're 75 and concerned in July, and they're 75 and concerned in August. Their concern is not going away.
But I'm trying to be, I mean, there is some tools that are available to that. Secondly, we may be going to a town meeting on June, what was the date you were saying, Andy?
24th.
24th. I can pretty much guarantee on June 24th, there is not going to be a state budget. There may not even be a state blueprint on June 24th.
Right.
That turns whatever the state ends up doing looking a lot like a 9C cut.
Right. So, so in terms of why not do the 1/12, the 1/12 is the finance team has talked about the 1/12 a lot. None of us are wild about it. It gets things more complicated. It's more steps. The board has to each month adopt a new spending plan for the ensuing month, and then we have to submit it to the Division of Local Services for their approval. So there are extra steps. Essentially, we have to build a budget each month for the board's approval and the DLS approval. There's some concern about, depending on how many communities do that, what the backlog is going to be in that. One of the other challenges is we could do the 1/12, and as you mentioned, Brian, one of the concerns we had initially was those balloon payments, if you will, at the beginning of the year. Our property and casualty insurance and our pension assessments, particularly, we get a discount if we pay them up front on July 1. We were concerned that if we did a 1/12, that we wouldn't be able to do that. The legislation is structured in such a way that we can still pay those, and so we would do essentially a 12 plus whatever those pension and insurance payments are. That's the good thing. One of the challenges, though, is particularly on the elementary school side, where they don't have tremendous employee costs or payroll costs in July and August, the first 2 months of the year. Most of their costs at that point are on the expense side. That flips completely around in September when the teachers come back to work. They've done most of their purchasing of supplies and services, and then it is more of a payroll warrant that they're submitting every other week, and that becomes more complicated for the school department to do, especially when it's multiplied over at least 2 towns. Boxford has already voted to hold their town meeting in September. The superintendent has made clear to Boxford that it's okay, but they better have a town meeting in September, or it's really going to get complicated and difficult for the schools. So if that's multiplied by 2 or 3, that makes the job of central office even that much more difficult. In terms of the state budget, you're right. We won't have a state budget in June. I doubt we'll have one in July. I'm uncertain that we'll have one in August. I think this is going to lag. There are a number of unknowns that are going to remain unknown for a long time. The comment that I made 2 weeks ago at the joint meeting with the Finance Committee was, we'll have the entire year to figure out, or almost the entire year to figure out what kind of adjustments we need to make. Right now, we've factored in a 5% discount or a 5% reduction in state aid to cities and towns. We presented that on May 7th at the joint meeting. There is rumblings now that state aid could be cut by 20%. That's another $300,000 to our budget in reduced revenues. That's hard to find, and so if we know if we find out in July or August, we can adjust. We can be ready for a town meeting in whenever we have a fall meeting. Ideally, it wouldn't be September. You got to remember, this is also a presidential election year. There's going to be a state primary in, correct me if I'm wrong, Eileen, the beginning of September or the end of August. I forget which. And then there'll be the presidential election on November 3rd. So,
Andy, it's September 1st.
September 1st, thank you.
And we have 2 weeks of early voting before that.
Yeah, and then 2 weeks before the November, or 3?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So you start to take those weeks out, and it narrows when we can, where we can fit in a town meeting. We know we're going to need a town meeting in the fall because there are going to be things that we need to do, and there probably will be budget adjustments that we need to make. But if we know that, if we know in June or July that we're looking at a point in time of, the first or second week in, or the last week of September, or first week in October, we can we can be focused on that date for months to make sure that our free cash is ready to be submitted and is certified, and that we identify any kind of adjustments to the budget that need to be made, whether that's on the revenue side or on the expenditure side, or probably a little bit of both. So that's my preference for doing the town meeting in June rather than the 1/12 budget.
So if we go to a June town meeting and we make the decision that we want to amend our quorum to 35 and 50 people show up, and at the time the governor is still operating under an order of gatherings of less than 50, what's the protocol for that? Do we cap attendance and turn away? How do we operate that? Do we move to an overflow room? Do we?
Yeah, so local legislative bodies are exempt from the gathering rule. The gathering rule right now is 10, and it's unclear when that. Well, it may be in the reopening plan. I don't recall when it's stated to be or scheduled to be increased. But town meeting's exempt, so if 35 people show up, we can have 35 registered voters show up, we can have a town meeting. If 135 show up, we can still have a town meeting. Okay. So in terms of the layout of the room, I'll get into the weeds a little bit, but we can spread the rows out. So like I said earlier, so there's plenty of space between the rows. We'll be there to guide people on where and how to sit so that there's enough distance. We will, Eileen was talking about checking people in using the poll pads and sort of going through the line and checking people in, and then sending them right into the room. We'll have microphone covers so that there's no concern about, I want to speak, but that guy was clearing his throat while he was speaking, and I don't want to speak into that microphone. So we'll try to address all of those logistical issues, make sure that everybody's wearing a face covering of some type, and basically lay the room out in such a way that we can accommodate everybody, and have the overflow room downstairs, which has a hard wired connection, so that if people do want to go down there, they can go down there if they feel that that's a more appropriate location, or they feel more comfortable down there.
And just as a point, if on that scenario that Andy gave, if we adopt the 35 and we get 135, we're still subject to the minimal, just the economic issues. We can't then say, oh, let's address everything else.
Understood.
If you pick it, you're stuck with it.
Yeah, right. But the last couple of town meetings, I think last year, the annual, we were at 118. Eileen was, I don't know if you had a chance to look that up, but.
Yeah, I have a rundown. I mean, 2019, it was 118. 2018, we had some hot topics and we were 147. 2017, we had a very busy town meeting. We had 332. So it clearly, when we look at the minutes, it just depends what's on the warrant. I mean, 2016, we had 306. I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, I can give you all kinds, but usually we're in and around that 150 average range. But the last few town meetings, we've just made it, even with some hot topics. Or some
no COVID.
We're in and around. We had 2 town meetings, 118, oddly enough. So,
Andy, are you suggesting that the motion be for, not suggesting, but you are, that we vote on a reduced number pending approval by the legislature, or are we waiting until after the legislature passes?
So what I'll recommend to the board at the end of the discussion is to authorize us to ask town council to make a petition to the court if the legislation has not been passed, has not been signed by June 1st. And I think that will, I think that'll give us enough time. We're required, the board is required to post notice a week in advance of their vote to reduce quorum. And there's a couple of other things in terms of getting out the word to people. So,
and you're also proposing moving the date to later in June.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I'll make a motion.
No.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we move the town meeting to June 24th, and that we have our town council petition the legislature, if they have not passed any legislation, to reduce our quorum requirement to the number of 35.
Actually, it's petition the court.
Petition the court, yeah, petition the court if the legislature has not acted.
Yes.
Has not acted
By June 1st.
by June.
I second that
Okay.
motion.
A second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No other discussion. I'll ask Mr. Moreski to call a roll call.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. All righty. Let's see here. All right. Well, then when that's getting down to it, we're going to move to make a vote to accept donations for the Middleton Food Pantry.
Actually,
Do we
the
know if
board
those
can
came
skip
in
over
yet?
that.
Or
Yeah, we didn't get,
we didn't get them in
didn't
time.
come in, so we can skip that.
Okay. All right. Then we'll postpone consideration of that. All right. And let's see. The I guess this discussion now on our summer meeting schedule.
This might be silly to talk about, but we usually talk about it at this time, so I threw it on there. I don't know that we know when our meetings are going to be. We may have to meet on a regular basis throughout the summer, but I didn't know if there are any blackout dates. It's always helpful to have them in the calendar for scheduling purposes.
I would say due to Zoom, we probably, unless the order changes in the state that doesn't allow this to do anymore, and we move back to in-person, I think we kind of keep the dates we have now, and we can always cancel in advance. I think we're probably going to have the next 3 in June. We're probably going to need at least 2 of those leading into the June 24th town meeting.
Right.
We may not need the 30th, given that.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
The other, Tim, before you came in, the board did vote to add an item to the agenda, and that is regarding Thunder Bridge Beach. And just to give you the background on that, that could open as early as next week under the governor's reopening plan.
Right.
Derek Fullerton has advised against reopening the beach. He doesn't have the authority to shut the beach down. That's the prerogative of the board. So he has requested through me that the board vote to not reopen Thunder Bridge Beach until further notice.
I would make that motion.
And I would second that motion.
All right. A motion and a second. No other discussion. Ask Ms. Moreski to take a roll call vote.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
All right. The motion carries unanimously. Excuse me. I'm looking at 2 screens here, trying to catch up to the. What else do we have?
So I just have one item for new business.
Can't
And
see.
I'm
Oh,
being
there it
really
is.
biased here because I have a graduate of the Masconomic class of 2020. But a week from this Friday was supposed to be Masconomic's graduation. In addition, multiple graduations around the area for Middleton residents that are class of 2020, whether it's high school or college. Many of those activities have not been able to be held. I know Masco is trying to move to August, but just a big shout out to all the graduates of Masconomic Class of 2020, as well as our residents that are graduating from other schools, including colleges. I know the parents and the community and the business community have been finding ways to recognize all of these graduates, but I'm hoping, I know the Tri-Town Transcript, or as the paper is now called, is going to be recognizing all of these residents, including our Middleton residents on that. But just a big shout out. And a second big shout out to my favorite graduate, my son Armando.
Very good. Congratulations to him. All right. If there's no other business, I just want to say thank you to the board and Andy and Tanya and everyone involved for obviously us having to go through this under unique circumstances, as well as if you just pass it along to the rest of the town employees, and I don't know if anyone's listening, but the town in general, just, thanks for your understanding and support, and continue to stay well.
All right,
Thanks,
I make a
Rick.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Aye.